I took the horn apart, which basically there's screws around the outside here that hold this ring on, and then there's a noise baffle, and then there's this piece here that you just lift off, and it's got some washers on top. I'll show you when I put it back together. But this is where the entire electrical short started on this motorbike, this moped. This little grommet here, you see? It's a little rubber grommet. There's two of them, supposed to be, for each one of these holes to keep water out. And as you can see, apparently water runs down on this and in there. These little grommets went to heck, and one of them crumbled up. Just happened to be on the red one, which is the 12 volts always to the horn, and then when you get ground it honks. So the wires that I pulled through when we did the headlight, had the headlight open, I'm not going to use those. Those are way too heavy. I did find a piece of red wire that's the same gauge, it appears, as the pieces left over from the wiring harness. I looked and couldn't find that piece of purple that I had saved from something, but I have a yellow piece, the same gauge. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and solder in new wires, run them back through that hole, and then I guess I'll just get some silicone and put around that to clean the rust off a little bit. Put some silicone on it so it will not leak and it won't rub. It looked to me like that wire just sat in here and vibrated enough that hole that it wore through, went to ground, possibly, and then everything shorted from that point because, well, there was no fuse. So I'll fix this. Here's my red wire soldered in there, and my yellow wire, which originally would have been purple. So anyway, we'll put it back together. And what this is, it's just a solenoid. There's a little breaker right here that breaks contact when this baffle button right here comes down and pushes it. So what happens is you put electricity to this coil, creates a magnet which pulls this pin down, and when it pulls it down, it pushes this against that tab and opens it up and breaks the circuit so it can pop up, and that flexes back and forth against this and it makes a buzzing noise. So when I took it apart, I had no idea, and I took all these screws loose, and then I took this centerpiece, this nut loose, and these, and then lifted this off, peeled this loose from here. But I didn't have to take this apart, so I'm just going to go ahead and put that back together real quick. And this goes, I think it goes the little bevel down, I believe, and a washer, and then this nut. And I did not have to take this off. I could have just pulled this baffle and whole assembly out. I'm going to rotate it to where this is not, it's got a clean spot where it's not been contacting there a lot. This sits on there. This on the ring sits over the top. And we line up our screw holes. And put these little screws in. Here's my horn. Cut a piece of heat shrink or tubing from the leftover from the previous video when we spliced our wiring harness, and now opened this headlight back up. And in the previous video we had didn't have a purple wire, so we used I run a brown and white wire back and then back to keep so I could find it again, and I was planning on using these wires but I'm not going to, and then this red one here with an orange stripe. So I am going to fish this wire back up, plug these in, screw this where it belongs, and we should be fixed up. Let me put it down here. It just screws right in. Right there, and then just run up and in. So, okay, if you remember on the last video, when we spliced this underneath here, we left all this over here and it was melted together because the fuse was removed and it shorted out. And so I went and I found a fuse holder from an old CB radio that was just a power plug for a CB radio. They didn't even have the radio anymore. So how this worked out is I have an extra tail here on it to give it some length. So this is going to go to the battery. Which, look, here's our battery. We come up to our fuse, which is right there. And then our fuse, we have the rectifier coming into it, a red wire coming off of our harness, and a red wire from our flasher. And I dug around in the box and found that flasher. And here's the red wire from the harness. And I think, yeah, and then here is my rectifier. It's right there. And so I put these three connectors here in case someday somebody changes out the rectifier, they can just unplug it instead of it all being crimped together. And that's the reason on it, easy change out. So then I hooked up the brown to the flasher. Then there's a green right here. That is going to be ground, and then I'm assuming probably there, I suppose. I don't know. And then there will be a wire from here goes to the battery, which I don't have a battery. And then there's a light green on the rectifier right there, light green. And So there's the power, and light green, and then to the engine. So that goes back into that harness. But here's a black wire. And we had a black wire when we was up on the other end in the headlight, but there was no black wire anywhere. So I'm not hooking it up. I didn't hook it anywhere on the other side. And so that's, and since I didn't take this apart, I don't know right now where all of these pieces go. I'm gonna guess this cable probably doesn't set down here. It probably rides up here underneath the cover, would be my guess, away from that, but I don't know. So for now, I'm gonna bundle this up and set it up here and tie it up out of the way. Then when I get a battery, I can test the lights. Got it all neatly bundled up there, tied up with a piece of string, and I put a 15 amp fuse in there. The CB radio had a 3 amp fuse, and I know that's not enough, so I figure 15 is ample, probably plenty for these lights, but I don't know. That's where I'm starting. Unless I find something different in the parts manual, maybe. So